I made the long ladder analysis thread on Battle.net forums. I'm the multiplayer and esports MVP, and it's a pleasure to finally meet you guys. My question is, what besides the hidden matchmaking rating influences player ranking, promotion, and matchmaking?
You want to take this one, Josh?
Yeah. So I think a lot of what you've already posted is pretty... I mean, I can't come out and say everything's accurate, I guess, to put a stamp of approval on it, but it's close enough to make pretty good guesses at what's going on there. As Greg said yesterday, when you play a match, and similar to what you've seen in WoW arenas, we look at your ladder points and we compare that to that skill rating in the back end. In addition, something you may not know is, or you may have guessed at, is bonus points don't have any role at all in that update. Aside from that, we do have to do some other bits of math to look at the fact that you are in different leagues and the fact that the skill of your division actually does come into play. But other than that, you pretty much have you have enough knowledge there to understand what's going on within your division, which is where we want you to focus. In addition, as we come out with the Masters League and the Grandmasters League, something that you might think is really cool about the Masters League is so right now when you rank people across all of Diamond League, those rankings are not exactly accurate. In the Masters League, if you do that, you can trust those a lot more.
Thanks for the validation.
Hello.
Hi.
I was sitting behind you yesterday during the Huck Loner game, and I started thinking, when you guys are out here watching the games, are you guys watching it as the developers and the balancers, or are you guys trying to separate yourselves and just sit back and enjoy the game?
I'll speak for myself. I'm just trying to be a fan at that moment. If I see something horribly go wrong, I would probably switch to developer mode immediately and freak out. But other than that, I'm just screaming and cheering and enjoying the game like everybody else. What are you guys?
As a balance perspective, I think we're always kind of turned on in the sense like we're always looking for stuff that's breaking what we have going on in our heads, you know, like, oh, how's he using roaches? Like, we didn't intend that at all. But I definitely watch as a fan, and I mean, I didn't see anything go horribly wrong, so I'm pretty happy.
For me personally, I watch a lot of pro games. I not only watch all the major tournament games, but pros actually send us replays for us to watch as well. So because of that, when I'm watching these games, I'm not really surprised by the tactics they use, so I'm just watching to confirm the balance of our game.
And one quick one. When you guys are out on your...
Catch us after, man. Catch us after. We'll be right here. You catch us after. We'll do it, all right?
I think that guy's wearing a Snuggie. I'm not sure. I was going to say terrible PowerPoints, but they're not. Those are awesome PowerPoints you guys have. That's really good. My question is, and I was listening to the Protoss versus Terran balance you guys are looking at. Do you guys think the warp gate technology and how fast a TOS player gets it is somewhere you want it to be? Because I get the feeling that, and oftentimes, the Protoss can force a macro game very early and very quickly, and I don't want anybody to mess with the gate stuff because I think it's awesome. It's a unique ability, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I got to fight all that stuff again. Right. I just built 6 barracks, and I still can't keep up with 4 warp gates. Right. So I'm curious, what's your opinion on the warp gates? Are they where you want them to be?
Well, we're always trying to make everybody feel as broken as we can, right? Like, every race should feel insanely overpowered, and yet somehow it all works. So I'm hopeful that we're there. They've actually been nerfed quite a bit over the last year, I would say. So I'm hopeful, but I think they're okay. What do you guys think?
I think every race has a broken mechanic. Like, Zerg puts down a Spire, a Hydroden, and a Roach Warren, and then you're fighting 200 pop Roaches, and then 2 minutes later you're fighting 200 pop Mutas. Like, you just don't know what's coming. So I think it's actually in a pretty good spot right now.
What I'm noticing at especially pro level is we're seeing less and less of all these warp-in rushes that you're speaking about. And I think the reason for this is because warp-in rush is a very different type of all-in rush that people aren't used to from Starcraft or even War 3. And top players are actually figuring out ways to counter it pretty easily. And I think eventually the skill required to master this will trickle down to the lower levels as well, and hopefully it'll be balanced for across all levels of play.
Hi. Do you think the Hunter-Seeker mixer are underused? Well, it was a very cool spell before, but now I think it cannot do any more terrible damage yet.
Oh, nice.
The Hunter-Seeker was actually a spell that was causing a lot of trouble in the late game. Terran players were actually able to just take maybe 1 or 2 expansions, lock those 2 down with mass planetary fortresses as well as mass siege tanks, and all you do is just make ravens on the offensive to trade their mana for enemy resources, like just being able to kill everything, right? So because of that, we had to actually nerf it because that kind of degenerate gameplay is not what we're looking for.
Yeah.
But and at the same time, not every single spell in the game has to be generally useful in every single situation. And we feel that in specific situations, for example, if you're playing against Zerg and he makes a lot of Mutalisks, having a few Ravens casting Hunter-Seeker is very useful. So we feel that as long as different abilities are very powerful in specific situations that happen on a fairly regular basis, that's a very good spot for that spell.
We're definitely not, to your point, we're definitely not saying used a lot. I don't think we're going to buff it in the immediate future because of the problems David talked about. And we're going to kind of wait and see on that one to see what the community does with it. We're often surprised by you guys when you suddenly start using something that nobody ever used before and you're doing just a ton of damage with it. So we're going to wait and see on that one. But there's no plans to buff it immediately, even though I tend to agree. It only sees uses in a couple of scenarios. Yeah, that's a good question.
All right, my question has to deal with the life cycle of a patch and how much leeway you give into professional gamers in order to develop new strategies. Say the roach range from 3 to 4 right before GSL. How do you give them enough time to say, okay, I'm going to change this now in order to, develop better strategies?
Well, I think the answer to that is we really need a server that's sort of separate for those guys to play on so they can choose whether they want to play the old patch or the new patch. And that's the technology we're looking to. I think it's our long-term solution. We have announced in the past what we're going to do in advance, and then it took us like a month to get that patch out at the end of the day. This last one we kind of sprung on people, but we did have David and Matt Cooper went out there and made sure that we were looking at only the earliest versions of some of these tournaments, right? That GSL, I think, was in the earliest rounds when that one first went out.
Yeah,